Hello and welcome into the Devil Source Postgame Show. I'm Ethan Tuttle, joined alongside Chris Cartman. We're here at Sun Devil Stadium following Arizona State's upset win over number 21 Washington, 45-38, led by backup quarterback Trenton Bourguet following Emory Jones leaving the game. Chris, first of all, I just want to get your initial takeaways on this upset win.
Not super surprising, really. I thought that the line of 14 points or whatever it was at the end favoring Washington was pretty absurd. Figured this was going to be a shootout game. I didn't know that ASU would be able to kind of get over the hump and actually win in a game like this, given some of the concerns that they had with their secondary and Michael Penix Jr.'s prolific passing attack. I predicted ASU would lose by 5 points in the 30s, but the biggest, of course, thing that everybody's going to be talking about is Trenton Bourguet's performance. He did a great job. He didn't look like somebody who was just out there starting for the first time. Yes, Washington's defense has been really struggling this season, especially in recent history. Bourguet's an operator. Some people I saw on Twitter were comparing him to Taylor Kelly, who's a really good quarterback for the Sun Devils during Todd Graham when the team won 10 games back-to-back seasons. Bourguet understands where the blitz is coming from, when he has to get it out. He slides and moves in the pocket. He gets the ball out of his hand quickly. He had a very good performance. I'm actually not super surprised, actually, that he played well. You know, maybe didn't expect him to play quite as well as he did. ASU's defense, was average at best, but they did sort of get some stops in key situations. The Jordan Clark interception, of course, was huge. Big win for ASU overall because they were headed for a 1-5 start for the first time since World War II, 80 years. That never happened. It already was at 1-4, the worst since 1976. And they, the progress that they're showing over a 3-week period under Sean Aguano, I think has been pretty impressive. They have a chance now, kind of going into a bye week, and then Stanford following that, which is not a very good football team, to kind of get some mojo going, feeling pretty good about themselves. This is something that's going to inject some energy into the program. It has the ability to kind of change the trajectory of their season to some degree. Are they going to be a team with a winning record at the end of the day? I don't think so, Ethan, but they at least now can become a decent team potentially as we kind of carry this forward over the next month and a half.
Yeah, you talked about Trent Bourguet. We saw some of those flashes in practice. We saw it on the field today. 5 for 5 in the red zone, 100%. What was your thoughts on just the offensive style play for the Sun Devils today?
Well, they were balanced. I think that they ran the ball reasonably well early on. Xavier Valade went over 100 yards again. Daniel Ngata had some successful carries. I think what they did was they also avoided giving up too many pressures, right? So Des Holmes didn't start at right tackle. He's been hurt this week. That led ASU to starting Emmett Boley at the right tackle position. Then Ladarius Henderson got hurt, I think in the third quarter with a hand injury. ASU sent out Ben Bray. But we've been talking about all season really is ASU's need to get the ball out of the quarterback's hand more quickly on early downs, to not be behind the chains as much so that they get into some more manageable third down situations. Today they were like 60% or something like that on third downs. Very successful performance. It allowed them to sustain drives, get into the red zone. Then they turned their red zone opportunities into touchdowns every single time. I think we were 5 out of 5 on touchdowns. So look, when you're going to score over 40 points, which is the most against Washington since 2014, that means that you were successful on third downs. You had balance with your rushing attack and passing attack, and then also that you converted red zone trips into touchdowns. They did all those things. Very impressive performance.
And how much of this was just offense for ASU coming out really strong, and how much was it Washington coming off of a tough loss against UCLA last weekend? So kind of what do you take from that? How much of it was just Arizona State being dominant today, and how much of it was maybe Washington struggling a little bit after that loss?
I would go 60-40 on the ASU side, being a little generous probably to ASU. Yes, Washington, bad defense recently, especially against UCLA in the secondary. Started a true freshman at cornerback, then also very early in the game was playing another true freshman, Tristan Dunn, who actually was an ASU commit prior to switching to Washington. Those guys didn't do particularly well in the secondary. But ASU executed, right? You still have to go out there, run the routes, make the throws, handle the blitz pressure the way that they did. They executed at a very high level. As I said, not giving up any sacks. Bourget was on time and accurate, made good reads. Were there drops? I didn't see really any drops, maybe 1 or 2 in the whole game for the Sun Devils, which is also quite impressive. And then being able to turn those scoring chances into touchdowns. Very high marks for ASU's offense overall. They've built quite clearly over the last few weeks. I think Glenn Thomas under Herb Edwards was very conservative in the way that he was utilizing Emory Jones, confined to the pocket, too many dropbacks, not as much quick game throws, not as much RPOs as they probably should have. And they've been sort of building into the Sean Aguano goal of being more aggressive, and I think that we saw that kind of breakthrough and translate here. Look, would ASU have done this well had they been playing one of the better defenses in the Pac-12? Probably not, right? Let's be honest about that. But what matters is how you do against the teams that you play, and ASU came out and handled its business today on offense.
Yes, interim head coach Sean Aguano spoke after the game, a little bit emotional, got his first collegiate victory as a head coach. And you talked to him a little bit after the game and asked him a question about the quarterback potential battle, if there's going to be one. What was his response to that after Bourget's terrific performance here today at Sun Devil Stadium?
Right, so essentially he said it's going to be a battle. That's a quote. That was the first thing he said. I followed up asking him, hey, are you saying that this is now an open competition between Bourget and Emory Jones? That's the number one thing that ASU fans are probably going to take from this game. Well, that and or some who have the opinion that maybe Sean Aguano is positioning himself well to become the head coach. But Aguano wouldn't exactly say. He just basically said, there's going to be a battle. Right, I took that to interpreting it subjectively, but I took that to basically mean that they're gonna evaluate everything kind of in the bye week. That's a normal time that you would evaluate your personnel anyways. Go out there, maybe you have a scrimmage by the end of the week, or at least you kind of ramp up some 11 on 11, and you get a look at some of your guys, right? Emory Jones, I'm not sure exactly what happened to him. He took a hit that was kind of around the head, the chin area, seemed a little bit unsteady as he was going off the field, didn't come back out. Everyone's going to sort of suspect that maybe he had a concussion or concussion symptoms. Sean Aguano said after the game that he hugged Emory Jones. He was all smiles. So, we'll see about that. Normally, something like that probably doesn't take a guy out for 2 weeks. The next week could always be in question, but because ASU has the bye, we'll see what happens with Emory Jones. I think at a minimum, though, this is now a legitimate conversation about who should be the quarterback of this team moving forward.
Absolutely, and in the bye week coming up, you kind of talked and hinted a little bit about how much that competition is going to be taking place over this next week. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But as far as the bye week goes for the Sun Devils, midway through the season, or at least approaching that point, how do they continue this momentum after upsetting the Huskies and kind of continue moving forward this season?
Look, if you're 1-5 and you've lost, 3 Pac-12 games in a row to start the season, that feels a lot different emotionally than being 2-4 and having just beaten the team that's ranked number 21 in the country, right? Kyle Soley said after this game, we feel like we can play with anyone if we put 4 quarters together, but we haven't been able to do that prior to this game. And ASU's defense didn't even probably put 4 quarters together tonight, if we're being fully honest about it. But there's nobody that's really remaining on their schedule who is a game that they're going to be prohibitive underdogs against, right? UCLA has to come here. They'll probably be favored, but that's a game that ASU could still win. ASU doesn't play against Oregon. Already played USC and Utah, right? So getting Stanford, Oregon State here at home, going on the road to Colorado, Washington State, probably their toughest game remaining on the schedule, and Arizona. There's no game that ASU can't win on the schedule, right? And these guys very clearly have shown that they talk about this stacking days. It's like an Aguano thing that they talk about, where you just control what you control one day, try to get 1% better every day. You put that on top of each other day after day, and then that sort of has the ability to translate on the field. They were able to do that today. That's going to then be used by Aguano and the rest of their staff to show, hey, look, this works. If you guys just continue to buy in, they're going to have a positive energy as they go through the next couple weeks. And Stanford is a very gettable opponent on the road, which gives ASU a chance chance to continue to claw back into this thing. By the way, 2 losses in the Pac-12, that does not put you out of the Pac-12 race, right? So I'm not saying by any stretch that ASU is going to go and reel off a bunch of wins, but what the coaches are telling the players is, hey, if we just keep winning, who knows what can happen by the time we get to November. We could potentially still be in this thing.
And really quick, just one last thing I want to touch on. Defensively, you were just talking about the defense a little bit. I just want to get your take on Jordan Clark and his performance tonight. He had a pick 6 in the second half. It was a big-time play. Just your thoughts on his performance specifically on that play as well.
So at that point in time, I felt like ASU wasn't getting a lot of stops. The ball by Michael Penix went into the helmet of a Washington player, popped up into the air to 30 feet. Jordan Clark, probably was looking at that thing like it was a bag of money falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
And intercepted it, took it back to the house. ASU hasn't had one of those all season. One of the things I talked about as a key for ASU in this game was trying to get some strip sacks, trying to get some interceptions, get some takeaways, get some points defensively. They were able to do that. They only had 1 sack in this game, so that sort of increases the importance of what Jordan Clark was able to do with that interception. It was lucky, kind of fell in his lap, but that put ASU ahead by 14 points. We all saw, of course, that ASU wasn't able to keep a lead through the duration of the game. Washington was able to claw back, had 2 scores in the fourth quarter, tied the game, right? But then ASU was able to put together one final offensive drive with Bourget, who was pretty complete performance by him. Again, he had the 1 interception. And then, of course, Washington on its final opportunity had the fumble, went back to the 4th and 35, and then had the Hail Mary attempt that really didn't have much of a chance, didn't even get to the end zone, was batted down by ASU. Jordan Clark had a signature performance. Kyle Soley had 12 tackles. He's been kind of all over the place leading the team. Merlin Robertson had a very good 4th down stop kind of earlier in the game. ASU's secondary still pretty shaky overall. Tamarcus Davis was out there on a couple plays. He had a personal foul. No, he had a holding, on a 4th and goal from the 4, which then gave Washington fresh set of downs, and they converted on. They scored a touchdown earlier on that drive. There was a 3rd and 7 or 8 that ASU also had another penalty, which kind of gave Washington room. So the penalty is still a problem, Ethan. ASU had 10 penalties tonight in this game. Several of them were pretty costly and probably contributed or were the main reason why Washington was able to convert some of those red zone opportunities into touchdowns. They got to still clean up some of those things, not have as many personal fouls and other issues. BJ Green jumped off sides in his first rep in the game. That had an impact. They had a couple other costly penalties, so they got to fix that. This was Jordan Clark's probably one of his best games. I thought Isaiah Johnson also played well, getting a start over to Marcus Davis. The front played reasonably well for ASU. Probably didn't get as much pressure as they would have hoped, but something that they can maybe continue to build on. One thing though with their defense is the soft zone coverage on the perimeter is allowing too many completions underneath of that of 6, 8, 10, 12 yards, and that happened again tonight in this game. Donnie Henderson and Sun Devils going to have to take another look at that.
All right, 45-38 the final here at Sun Devil Stadium as Arizona State downs the Huskies in a great game. Make sure you stay tuned to all the coverage on Sun Devil Source. Might be a bye week, but we're going to have plenty of content. We'll see you next time.